Cheers and salutations. Welcome one and all to our YouTube channel, Americans Learn. My name is Kit, and we got ourselves a fun video to check out. It is from Sabaton History, 82nd all the way, Alvin, York, Sabaton History, number 29, official. So, without further ado, before we get started, be sure to grab yourself a tasty snack and a tasty beverage. Please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and hit that ring bell notification. That way all of you are made aware when we upload new content upon our YouTube channel. And also, folks, the original link to this video is in the description box below, and I encourage all of you, you wonderful, hip, cool cats, you good people, to do the right thing and support Sabaton History. Follow them on all their social media, because the History Channel's not doing its job, and we here at American Learns like to get our learn on, because Americans Learn support good content creators that tell history and wonderful facts about this crazy world and the events that help shape it. So there you go. So it's the right thing to do. So original link to the video, description box below. We do that for all of our videos. And folks, listen, we have ourselves a Sabaton History video, so you know what the rules are. We get our learn on first, and then we play the fun music video. So let's get ready to check it out in a 3, a 2, a 1.
I'm Indy Nidell.
And I'm Joaquin from Sabaton, and this is Sabaton History.
Yeah.
That's right.
The American 82nd Division was formed during World War I and was known as the All-American Division.
And our song, 82nd All the Way, is about that division and Sergeant Alvin York.
For the poor of the United States in the 19-teens, life was tough everywhere. But deep in the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee, where people lived in small communities, distrusted outsiders, and carried guns and knives wherever they went.
Okay. I'm pretty sure they you know, maybe the photographer caught them all in a bad mood, and, you know, or either that caught them before they put on their smiley faces, or, you know, whatever. But first impressions are lasting impressions, and if I see those 4 individuals, I'm pretty sure they're just trying to mind their business, and I'm going to drive out there as fast as humanly possible, so that way they can carry on with their merry business, and I'm probably still breathing. So, you know, hey, audience, if this is one of your great-great-grandpappies, type in the comment section below. Maybe there's a story behind this photo. Maybe there isn't. If there is, I really hope it's friendly. I hope it's not terror. I hope it's not a nightmare. Because I would have to run away as fast as possible if I saw these 4. I'd have to run real fast. Super fast. And not look back. All right, let's continue on with the rest of the video.
Violence was omnipresent. Growing up as an impoverished farmer's boy there, Alvin York was used to the harsh environment, where people would solve their social tensions or take out their frustrations by drinking, gambling, and brawling. He was no exception, but in 1915, he forsook his violent past and dedicated his life to the Church of Christ. Fast forward 2 years. News of America's entry into the World War reached the little mountain community slowly, and it was not until early June 1917 that the call came to register for the draft. York sent his draft card back, having written on it, "I don't want to fight," and even wrote a letter explaining his religious beliefs.
Wow. Holy cow. Well, that took a lot of courage back then, especially during the beginning stages of the First World War. How's he going to get out of this one?
Beliefs that wouldn't allow him to join the war. But the draft board rejected his letter, arguing that the Bible was kind of open to interpretation, and war was a big part of it anyhow. York was left with no choice and was sent to join the 82nd Division for basic training in February 1918. Today, the 82nd is famous for its deeds as an airborne division in the Second World War. But back in 1918, they called it the All-American Division, made up of men from all over the states. At first, it had been Southerners like York, but soon the division was filled with men who were considered too troublesome or unruly for other divisions, many of them recent immigrants from Europe who hadn't been in the country long enough to speak proper English. York.
Huh. That is interesting. Everything that does have a beginning must and will have an end, of course, but it is also important to note that I think my only introduction to the 82nd Airborne was everything they did during the Second World War. I am unfamiliar with their feats or their stories of what they did during the First World War. Let's check it out.
Was not very popular with the others because of his rigid religious beliefs, especially not with his superiors. But he did what he was told, and that was good enough. He was a natural soldier and a remarkable marksman.
In the draft of 1917, a man from Tennessee. Overseas to the trenches he went, from the land of the free.
By September 1918, York and the 82nd were in France and had taken part in the Saint-Mihiel offensive. They now prepared to join the great Allied counteroffensive that was to break the German positions in the Argonne Forest. On October 3rd, near the ruins of the village of Varennes-en-Argonne, they marched out. French artillery batteries were shelling the forest, though, and were unknowingly hitting their own troops trapped there. There were even rumors of a lost battalion of men that was surrounded and about to be wiped out in those woods. The American public was waiting for such a story. The big press agencies wanted eyewitness stories from the reporters, and there was a lust for sensation among the public back home, which knew little of the war in Europe and hungered for news and first-hand accounts. For the reporters, it mattered little whether the story was about a hero or was a tragedy. Either made good headlines. But no one could have guessed they were so close to the two biggest American stories of the war. It did not take long for York's battalion to find the enemy. As the doughboys surged forward, they were hit by heavy fire from machine guns and mortars from a place identified as Hill 223. This was a major German position, and York's men were to cover the flank as the hill was taken. But as they were about to mop up resistance in the woods, a German counterattack struck, driving them back up the hill, where a ferocious battle for the crest was fought. The Americans prevailed, but York found himself standing at the top of a hill, surrounded by the dead and wounded. Sleep did not come easy after that, but York sought refuge in the Bible. Through shells of death with all their agitation, thou wilt protect me if I will only trust in thy grace. Bless thy holy name.
I think that's all what a person had. It's either their faith and their comrades to the left and to the right of them to get them through the day. It's unthinkable for us to really see what they went through, but it must have been pure hell. And look, a lot of guys came back with PTSD. Many of them, of course, the medics at the time called it shell shock, but what those troops went through was horror, the likes of which I hope no one ever sees.
The night of October 8th, as the Lost Battalion, who are also the subject of a Sabaton song, and who we've already done an episode about, had finally been found and the survivors were leaving the forest, it was York's turn to move back in. It was not until the early morning that they were back at Hill 223. The German shells were falling again. Under heavy gas attacks and mortar fire, panic began to rise. But panic is best fought off by action. Bayonets first, they rushed into the woods. York's platoon was cut in half by a German machine gun, and the survivors broke off the attack. Despite the terror, York rallied his squad and moved through the thick undergrowth and thorny bushes in an attempt to outflank the enemy position. But the forest was a maze, and the squad soon lost all sense of direction. As they emerged from the next line of bushes, they encountered two German medical orderlies. After a shared moment of disbelief, the Germans bolted. York's men, cursing and firing, gave chase. Running through the woods and thick bushes, they unknowingly went deep into German territory. Having lost the German medics, they emerged in a small clearing with dozens of German soldiers in front of them, chatting or having a meal. A lot of them were shirtless, but as they noticed the Americans with their menacing rifles and bayonets, they threw everything to the ground and threw up their hands into the air. York and his men, greatly outnumbered by their new prisoners, were about to search them when they were spotted by a German machine gun nest.
Oh my God.
They must have been overzealous bastards because they began firing into the crowd, hitting friend and foe alike. In the chaos of bullets and screams, York's best friend in the battalion was hit and went down in a pool of blood. That was it. The mild-mannered, God-fearing, Bible-reading Alvin York simply snapped, and anger and fury took over. As everyone else scrambled for their lives, York dashed forward, rifle in hand. He pushed up the hill, circling around the machine gun nest until he was atop a ridge overlooking the German position. York raised his rifle and pulled the trigger. One by one, the Germans went down. York killed them without mercy, but with extraordinary precision, until the machine gun was silenced and 19 dead Germans lay around it. As York took a moment to survey his work, another group of Germans burst from the bushes, bayonets first. Caught off guard, York dropped his rifle and drew his .45 pistol. After shooting the leader from just a few feet away, he kept on killing and killing. Dead Germans lay all around him, and all went silent.
How do you ever go back to... How do you even describe what happened?
A German lieutenant slowly got up, his hands raised. York kept the pistol aimed at the man's head. In a strong German accent, the officer tremblingly said, "If you stop shooting, I will make them give up." York kept his finger on the trigger, staring like death himself into the eyes of the German, ready to end his existence at any moment. Slowly, the German officer took a whistle out of his pocket, blew into it, and then yelled an order towards the bushes behind him. One after the other, German soldiers began appearing from behind the trees and bushes. So did the remaining Americans who had finally caught up with York. Seeing his men, York calmed down for a moment, but then a German soldier threw a hand grenade into the crowd. He missed York. York did not miss him, shooting the man dead on the spot. The other Germans offered no resistance.
Can you imagine being the officer trying to write the battle report and hearing this all from York? So, York, what exactly happened? What went down? And after hearing this story, the lieutenant says, "Hey, you're gonna have to say that again. I'm in utter shock. I wasn't really expecting this."
They began leading the column of prisoners back down the way they came, guarding them warily as they were clearly outnumbered. They made their way through the maze of woods, and another German platoon crossed their paths. But they were exhausted and astonished by the situation, and they gave up. A short while after that, they encountered yet another group of Germans who raised their weapons ready to shoot. Only York, pressing his pistol in the back of the German lieutenant, convinced him to think again. And all of them, except for one young German soldier clinging to his rifle, dropped their weapons. York shot the boy dead without hesitation. The column continued. Finally, out of the woods, they marched to Hill 223, where perplexed American soldiers stood and watched the spectacle of 132 arriving German prisoners captured by York and a handful of doughboys. The story spread among the men, but the American journalists were, for the most part, busy copying the reports coming from the lost battalion, and the newly promoted Sergeant York remained unknown to the American public for quite a while. York was proud of his deeds. He did, in fact, do what he was told, and he did it well. The war itself, however, remained a mystery to him, and he could not make sense of all the carnage and destruction.
And again, that's so true. He should be proud of what he did. He saved his men. He was able to achieve a great victory. But making sense of the First World War and why we're there or why we're fighting, it's enough to make anyone wonder, is any of this even worth it?
In the days after the battle, he walked the forest, accompanying medics and stretcher bearers, looking for survivors among the dead. Where did God fit into all of this? Who was to live and who was to die? Mere chance or God's will? Did someone guide his hands in this? It was not until April 26, 1919, over half a year later, when the Saturday Evening Post published York's story through a journalist that had heard of him in France a few months earlier. Basically overnight, Alvin York became one of the biggest American heroes ever. He was seen as all-American, as a warrior monk who answered the call to come to America's aid. When York arrived back in the States on May 22nd, he, like the men of the Lost Battalion before him, was greeted with a hero's welcome and was paraded through the streets. Newspapers, magazines, newsreels spread his story far and wide, and he did paid speaking engagements telling his story wherever he went. He received dozens of medals, some from France and Italy, and even the American Congressional Medal of Honor. Money was not an issue anymore, at least for the moment, but York refused many offers from businesses that tried to profit from his fame through advertising. Instead, he would soon return to rural Tennessee and buy a farm, and even open up a Bible school to educate the local youth. Still, though, the thoughts of that fateful day would keep him awake for many nights in his life. Once, he had forsworn violence and given his life to God and the peaceful teachings of his Christianity. He never wanted to go to war. And once he was there, among all the death and destruction, the war had brought back a side of him that he very much wanted to forget. And he would struggle with that for the rest of his life.
Into the fires of hell they are gone, not hero to be. Enter the wall from over the sea.
So, 82nd All the Way. This is a song from your new album.
If there are any videos or short essay videos about Alvin York, we would love to hear about them. Because again, without all of you, our wonderful viewing audience, we would not be made aware of Sabaton history. All of you told us about this channel and the dedication to the songs and heroes that they write about. So if you can help out, you wonderful, beautiful people, type in the comment section below.
Yes, the Great
Pretty
War.
exciting, the Great War. Well, what about the All-American Division? What was it that grabbed you about it? Was it Sergeant York, or was it the division itself? Or when you were looking at the Great War and thinking, okay, we've got to write a whole bunch of songs about this war, how did you choose just this specific topic?
Oh, specific topics. Man, it feels like for every Sabaton song we make, there are 10 stories we have to leave untold because
Okay.
they match. They don't really match. And with this one, it was really hard to find a story that matched the music in such a good way. Because, I mean, it's a catchy song. It's
Yeah.
upbeat. And, I mean, at least the image in my mind of the Great War is not very cheerful, you know.
No.
So we needed something heroic to celebrate there. And when me and Per were writing the lyrics, it's one of those times when things flow smoothly.
Okay.
It very, very rarely does. When me and Per are writing lyrics, we are always, well, not arguing in a bad way, but we're always, you know, working at everything from every angle. Everyone is playing devil's advocate at the same time, trying to get the best out of it and how to approach the song, from which direction, how do we connect it emotionally with the music, lyrically,
Right.
and getting all of those things together. It's usually quite of a struggle, but not in this case. It just came naturally.
Now, you're presumably going to be playing a bunch of all these songs from the Great War live, or at least a bunch of them when you're touring. How do you decide? How are you going to decide which ones you really want to play live? I mean, are there going to be some that are just not going to be done live? Or are you going to alternate things? Because you're going to obviously want to play a bunch of your hits and a bunch of popular favorites when you're touring.
Absolutely. I mean, in the end, that's up to you guys. You should let us know, because we're going to start out now as, you know, with a bit of a tour going on here. I mean, we can choose a few songs and see how it works. But if they don't work out, of course, we're going to change the set list.
Sure.
In most cases, we can predict a few songs that are going to be popular.
Especially for specific countries.
You know, what I like about this too is you get to hear the making of the music. And look, making art is not an easy task to do. Be a musician or painting a picture or working on a video, etc., etc., etc. It is a draining task, and it's something that must be respected. So when I say support Sabaton history, Sabaton and all their social media, if you haven't done so already, why not? Please do it. This is phenomenal work. They got a history channel, they got a music channel, they got all sorts of good stuff. Come on, folks. Be the best you could be like the 82nd. Go all the way and support Sabaton and Sabaton history.
Countries. Obviously.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, on every album, we are totally mistaken about 2 or 3 songs.
Yeah.
So in the end, it's up to the fans and you guys which songs are on the set list.
All right, well, that is 82nd all the way, and this was Sabaton History.
All right, everyone, that's it for today. And you know the drill. Playlist right there.
Mm-hmm.
Patreon, World War II, Time Ghost. See you soon. I dance great. Become Patreon.
And do 20 push-ups and drink water. So I think we all know what the rules are now. We had our learn on. We heard about the heroic actions of Alvin York and him trying to make sense of this horrific conflict that was known as the First World War. But now it's time to get some fun. Time to listen to some music, and I'm going to play it in its full entirety. So I encourage all of you, to sit back, relax, and let's enjoy some music. 82nd all the way, official lyric video by Sabaton. Enjoy. Let's pull this video up and play it.
In the draft of 1917, a man from Tennessee. Overseas to the trenches he went, from the land of the free. Into war he brought two things along, a rifle and his faith. Joined the ranks as a private assigned to 338. There, on that day, Alvin York entered the fray, saving the day, 82nd all the way. Into the fires of hell they are gone, a hero to be. Entered the wall from over the sea. Intervene 1918, all the way from Tennessee. Into 123. When his faith has been put to the test, the call to arms he heeds. On the 8th of October he went, made a sergeant for his deeds. Fearlessly in the rain of the war, machine gun on the hill. Just the enemy taking the prisoners by power of his will. There, on the day, Sergeant York entered the fray, saving the day, 82nd all the way. Into the fires of hell they are gone, a hero to be. Enter the wall from over the sea. Intervene 1918, all the way from Tennessee. Into 123. What Sergeant York achieved that day would echo to the USA. It's 82nd all the way, and from above what they now say. What Sergeant York achieved that day echoes from France to the USA. It's 82nd all the way, and from above what they now say. Into the fires of hell they are gone, a hero to be. Enter the wall from over the sea. Intervene 1918, all the way from Tennessee. Into 120, hell they are gone, a hero to be. Enter the wall from over the sea. Intervene 1918, all the way from Tennessee. Into 123.
Freaking incredible. Outstanding work as always from Sabaton and Sabaton History. Folks, listen, if you're not subscribed to their channel, please do so. So much has been done by them in regards to, I guess, enlightening and educating us about the First World War and many other conflicts that took place. So please check out their music. 82nd all the way, the story of Alvin York. You know, so much is ignored by, I guess, the powers that be, or those who dictate what should be talked about in history and history classes. I think many unsung heroes, men and women, throughout the various conflicts, fly under our radars. And I think it's our social responsibility to ensure that their stories, their memories are not forgotten, so that we can, maybe someday, put together the whole story about why these things take place. Hopefully, that we can never repeat the past, even though we seem to be experts of making the same mistakes over and over again. Let us remember the names of these individuals and the part that they helped contribute into making our modern world that we see it today. And dare I say it, perhaps someday we can have a better future, one that they can look at with pride at their descendants and so much more. So, shout out again to Sabaton History, the story of the 82nd, Alvin York, and the actions that they took place during the First World War. If there's any other videos that we should check out, your feedback is fundamentally important. But until then, take good care of yourselves and each other. Drink water. Please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Americans Learn. And as always, support the original content creators. I'll see all of you wonderful, beautiful people on the flip side. I'm up out of here.